we are at the green rooftop garden, looking from the 5th floor, and here is Ben. Ben, tell us what's your connection with this rooftop garden?
I'd love to, Jeff. So my name is Ben Nicholson. I'm the director of a company called Groof Consulting. I established Groof 10 years ago to encourage what's called green infrastructure, green roofs, green walls, roof gardens in Melbourne. And I was very excited when the developer contacted me 4 years ago now with an idea about putting a green roof on one of the apartment buildings here.
Great. And so were you part of the establishment of this, creating it, or did he do the creation?
Yeah, so initially a chap called Gary Simpson helped with the concept plan. The developer initially was thinking maybe sedum plants like succulents, because he'd seen that type of green roof in Europe. And I suggested to him to consider perhaps going with a green roof that was a bit unusual, in that it would be the first green roof on an apartment building in Melbourne that included stones, large stones for insects to bury under, logs for birds to perch on, grasses from the Gippsland grassland plains ecology, which is the grasslands that would have been here before Melbourne was developed, and a pond that is ephemeral.
Okay, so whereabouts is the pond when we...
So the pond is just
down in here.
in there. You can see the water playing.
Yeah, okay. Right, so
And
can you give us a bit of a tour? We can't stand on the garden.
No, you can't. So if we start from the pond, then we have a number of different grass species and spreading species.
Yeah.
Then we have one of the logs just here.
Yeah.
The logs are anchored with marine cable and Besser blocks. It's called a dead man anchor. So it means that the logs will never blow off. That was very important.
Okay. It's pretty windy up here.
It is quite windy. The larger stones came from a friend of mine's farm about 3 hours out of Melbourne. And they're very big and heavy, and we've weight tested them to make sure that they're up to standard so they won't blow off, which is also important.
Is that just ornamental, or does that serve another purpose?
So there's some spiders have set up camp in that cluster of rocks that you're looking at now.
So already it's actually starting.
Yes.
You know, there's a whole ecosystem that's...
It started. So the whole idea is that we call it into existence and we create the building blocks, and then nature just starts to do its own thing. So we create the conditions, and then the insects start to come, and then that brings the birds. And so hopefully in time we'll have birds starting to visit regularly.
So it's really designed for birds nesting?
Probably not nesting, more foraging.
Okay.
Although one of the benefits of it being the way it is that, for example, a cat couldn't jump up and predate a ground nesting bird.
Yeah.
So it's possible in time that there might be a ground nesting bird that sets up camp. But for now we're looking at it more as a stepping stone.
Yes.
Which then connects with the wider Melbourne environment.
Okay. So is this I think Matt said it was the second one in Melbourne or in Australia?
So Burnley Horticultural College, which is part of University of Melbourne, set up a small research plot about 6 years ago, which had a similar typology. They were experimenting with other things like terracotta tiles and a bit of building waste as well. So this is obviously a naturalistic green roof, but in the UK there are examples where they use building waste as a way of recycling to create environments for little critters to come and nest or live. But this is the first green roof on an apartment building in Melbourne of this kind, with this naturalistic design. The green roof is 60 square metres in area. Mm-hmm. It's about 30 centimetres deep. It has a drainage system which ensures that it drains properly, and we have irrigation in place just in case the plants need a bit of extra water. It has an exhaust vent there, which is part of the overall building infrastructure, but we were able to accommodate that very easily. And it really only needs a bit of weeding. every now and then, and to check the drains, as Matt said.
Right. So is this the sort of the state of things to come? Do you see that there are going to be a lot of apartment buildings and other buildings that are going to have this sort of feature?
Yeah, I definitely believe so. I've been interested in green roofs since I was 15, so I've been passionate about it for a long time. The key benefits are, in this case, because you can see it from the higher levels, there is an aesthetic benefit. There's the ecological benefit that we discuss. It provides insulation for the apartment underneath, and it also provides acoustic baffling so that it would be quieter inside the apartment, because the green roof acts as a dampener. There are various rating tools like the Green Building Council of Australia. In Victoria we have the Built Environment Sustainability Scorecard. Various rating tools that are increasingly being used in the planning system to award points for this sort of technology, because councils and governments are starting to realise the importance of bringing ecosystems and green infrastructure back into the city. They absorb stormwater, they reduce heating. If you add solar panels, then they can keep solar panels cooler, although you wouldn't do that here because it would affect the aesthetics. But there are a multitude of benefits that bringing greenery back into the city provide. And so we're going to see that more and more bedded into the planning process, and we're going to see more incentives as well.
Right. So you say, Ben, that you've been passionate about this sort of thing since you're 15,
Yes.
which is probably a few years ago. How do you feel when you're creating something like this?
It's a really extraordinary experience to have the vision in the first place. Imagine what it's going to look like. Work through all the technical considerations. Matt and I have spent probably 100 hours on the phone working through technical challenges to make sure that we think everything through. But then to be on the roof when it was being constructed, and then to be here and observing ladybirds, caterpillars, spiders, to see it actually call into existence, for me it really is a spiritual experience. We're calling something into existence that was not there. It was, the entire city has taken over an environment and ecology that was here. So when we're able to bring a little bit of that back and create these stepping stones bit by bit, we're starting to knit the living systems back together. And of course, these need maintenance, because once we call them into existence, it's a bit like giving birth. You have to then start taking care. And the challenge is to make sure that you let it be as much itself, so you're not trying to force it into a particular design outcome, whilst also making sure that it's maintained properly and doesn't start growing a gum tree on it, because that wouldn't be a good idea in this location.
Well, thank you very much for all that you've done as far as creating this, and it's really great that you're coming back every month or so just to help in the maintenance of it. And
It's such a pleasure, Jeff, and we're more than happy to answer any questions, and the more people who learn about green roofs and are happy to talk about it at weddings, parties, anything like me, the better, because that gives it even more chance of taking off across the entire city. So thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.